What's your reading of what's most likely to happen in the United States in a potential Biden versus Trump duke? Who do you think is likely to come out triumphant?
Well, I think Donald Trump is highly likely to be the Republican nominee. He just cleaned up in the Iowa caucuses. I expect there might be a little trouble in New Hampshire. That's always a tricky state, but I think he will have the nomination by Super Tuesday. And then it's going to be a very, very tight race. If you look at the swing states where this will be decided, there are about 5 states where it will be decided. It could be a couple of 100,000 votes that determine whether Joe Biden gets a second term or Donald Trump gets a second term. My gut at the moment is that it's really Trump who's got the best shot. But it's very close. 55% probability. It's just a little bit better than a coin toss that he gets re-elected. What that means for the world, people here in Davos are only just beginning to think about.
No, you tell us, what are you thinking about that? Because for every American, it's their number one concern. What could a second Trump presidency look like? What does that mean potentially for the rest of the world?
Well, for the rest of the world, it'll mean some interesting changes. As I've said, support for Ukraine is already in jeopardy long before Trump is back in the White House. But I think it's fair to say that it would not be good news for Ukraine if Trump won. He has no love for Zelensky, and he seems to have a kind of bromance with Vladimir Putin. So that seems like bad news for Ukraine. Probably good news for Israel. Trump's track record in Israel was pretty supportive, had his hostility to Iran, was very obvious. In many ways, Trump's Middle East policy was more successful than Biden's. So I think it would be good news on balance for Israel, bad news for Iran. As for China, that's the big question. Trump really has been a proponent of tariffs, of a trade war. I'm not so sure Trump wants to get into an actual war with China. So it's a little less clear what it would mean for Taiwan. But, you know, the bigger consequences of a Trump re-election are at home, because it would call into question the very stability of the American Constitution. Remember, this is a man who called on a mob to march on the Capitol to try to overturn the result of the last election, and he's running for re-election now. That's a pretty shocking indictment of the mood of American voters. In many another country, I think Trump's political career would have been over on January the 6th, 2021, and here he is, narrowly the front runner in the prediction markets. So it's not so much the American empire that is at stake here, it's the American republic itself.
What about India, the relationship with India as Trump comes into power? There was quite a lot of bromance between Prime Minister and the President. And Prime Minister's done very well with Biden as well. Yeah. But how do you think it'll affect our relationship? Because there's a whole lot of talk about incredible India and inevitable India. You can't stay away from India.